There is a lot of writing advice out there. Much of it is good. Most of it is probably helpful in some way or another. No advice is perfect for everybody, though. Today, I want to go over some common writing advice and talk about how it's possibly hurting and causing roadblocks for some new writers. The first piece of advice I want to talk about is to write every day. This advice is great for many people, but I don't think it's great advice. I think instead of writing every day, it should be write towards your goals. It's obvious that the more you write, the better you will get. Many new writers hear this advice and put it together with their implicit knowledge that practice makes perfect, or practice will get them better. And unfortunately, this causes a lot of new writers to burn out because they try to write every day. Instead, try aligning your writing schedule with your goals. If your goal is to be published, you should write as much as you can without burning out. If you're writing for yourself as a hobby, then write whenever you want. Please don't misunderstand me. The second piece of advice I want to talk about is to only write when you're inspired. An important skill for life, not just writing, is learning to do things when you don't want to do them. The real skill is to push yourself and your writing by doing it at times when you don't want to. If you can do this without burning out, that's the real skill that we should all develop. The fourth piece of advice that I want to talk about is probably the most common advice that writers hear. Show, don't tell. This advice isn't bad, but it can become so for new writers that take it to heart. You can't show everything in a story. If you did, you would likely have way too much going on all the time. Some things should be told to the reader rather than shown. My favorite example I always go back to for this is the passage of time. If you showed every second passing, your story would likely be boring. Time jumps are normal, some are implied, some are simply stated. Another problem with trying to show everything is that it can cause what people call purple prose. This means that your writing is just overly done and a bit flowery. This happens a lot with new writers because we want to sound smarter than we actually are. And in doing so, we try and show way too much. Show don't tell has also contributed to the advice of not using adverbs, because an adverb is telling rather than showing. Let's give an example sentence with an adverb. He walked up the stairs angrily. The adverb is a description of the verb walked. Now, this is a bad example of adverb usage because it would probably be more interesting to say something like, he shouted his displeasure and stomped up the stairs. Adverbs can be useful, though, and shouldn't be avoided entirely. I think they are well used in dialogue tags. This allows you to keep your pacing rather than slowing it down to show something. The next piece of advice is Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun states that if there is a gun hanging on the wall in Act 1, it needs to be fired in Act 3. I honestly love this advice, but it can trip up new writers because they take it to heart and try to cut all redundancy from their story. Instead of cutting everything, try thinking about Chekhov's gun backwards. If a gun is fired in Act 3, it should be hanging on the wall somewhere in Act 1. Thinking about it this way will help you provide the proper foreshadowing for your story. Said is dead has been popular recent advice, and it's terrible advice. Said should be used frequently. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against sprucing up writing by using other words than said. It is simply tiresome to read something where said is replaced too often. Advice that can derail the new writers incredibly quickly is write what you know. This is good advice in my opinion, but only when it's not taken too literally. The spirit of the advice is to get people to understand that they can write incredibly good stories by including things that they know a lot about. That doesn't mean that you should never write about or include things that you don't know about. We live in an age where knowledge is at our fingertips. If you want to include something in your novel or your story that you think is interesting but you don't know a lot about it, if you think it would be cool, learn what you need to know and then just include it. It's not too hard. A piece of advice I hear quite frequently is to read more. This is wonderful advice and is useful for new writers. Unfortunately, I've heard of it derailing people because they didn't realize that they can't just read more. They have to put in effort to understand what they are reading. They have to dissect what other authors are doing so that they can learn. Learning is an action that needs to be coupled with reading. I've also heard advice to not read at all because it will influence your voice too much. This is silly. Everything you do in your life influences your voice. Should you just stop living so your voice stays the same and never changes? This next piece of advice isn't something I typically hear people giving each other. It's more advice that I think people tell themselves. Save your good ideas until you're a better writer. I don't think you should ever save ideas. You should write what you think is cool when you think it's cool. This will help you grow as a writer, and it will help you actually get to the projects that inspire you. The last thing I want to talk to you about is my unsolicited advice to you. It's this: all writing advice can be good, or it could be bad. It's never absolute. Good advice for one can be terrible advice for another. Find what works for you and stick with that. Don't try to shoehorn advice into your writing style or process when it's not working for you. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what your favorite or least favorite writing advice has been. This has been Garrett's Writing Corner.